What is going on, everyone? Nico Lint here, and I am standing on a classic Hughes 18 Redfisher, the old Lapstrake ones. And this one was actually given to me completely for free, no charge whatsoever. I have some huge plans for this boat that involve some international travel. I'm gonna talk about that after I walk you guys through this boat, but I'm gonna walk you through the boat. But before we do that, let's get an intro and some B-roll. All right, so as you can see from that intro, she is a gorgeous little boat. And before I give you a walkthrough, I just want to kind of touch base on the basis and how I got this boat. So way back in the day, before I was even a thought, I was born in 1997, I'm 26. Back in 1995, my grandfather was at, I want to say it was the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, and Hughes at that time dominated the flats boats world. And he was at a boat show and they had this Orvis Edition Hughes Redfisher, which is this boat. Has the teak deck. As you can see, it needs to be touched up a little bit, but has the teak deck. It had a like Hunter, olive green hull side. It had a 115 two-stroke on the back, Yamaha. It was a really awesome boat, and my grandfather had to have it. So he bought the boat. They towed it behind, at the time he had a 52 Hatter, a Sportfish, I believe. And so they towed it behind that, and then they sold that boat, built a 62 Nordhavn as a mothership. And so that boat was like a light blue. And so part of the plan with that boat was they kept a 16-foot egret on the bow of that boat, which we have back at the house still. And then they had this boat. And so when he got that boat built, they painted this boat light blue to match. And then they kept this one up on the bow of that Nordhavn for several years, cruising through the Bahamas. And so, but turns out they wanted something that was a little more tender friendly to go along with the egret, something to run people to and from restaurants and whatever. So this one went back behind their house, and this was when I was little. I was like 7 when this boat went to go sit at a lift behind their house. And so this is the boat that I pretty much grew up on here in Melbourne. I learned how to boat on this thing. I learned the Indian River Lagoon on this. I learned how to flats fish. This boat means a ton to me. And so through the years, when I was little, all through high school, every single weekend I was on this boat. Back in 2012, because it got used so much by me and my friends, we went ahead and redid it, put new teak decks in, put a new Yamaha motor on the back. And I know what you guys are thinking listening to this. In the intro, I said I was just giving this for free, and I'm talking about everything in it. I did not own this boat at this time. I did not own it at all. But as I got older, I started graduating to bigger and bigger boats, and I got into offshore fishing and everything. And so my interest more turned to our big boats. We had a 34 Yellowfin, a 37 Bahama, and now we have the 41 Bahama. And running to the Bahamas, running the 41 Bahama to the Bahamas, running around on that. And so this boat for a while, for a couple years, kind of just sat and never got used once. And kind of, fell apart. It wasn't maintained as it should have been. My family's captain, once we sold the big boat, our family captain retired too, and he kind of maintained the fleet. So when that happened, this boat kind of got lost, and so it sat there, and it still runs fine. It was used every once in a while, but it just was not maintained how it should have been maintained. And so it sat there for a while. Fast forward to, a couple months ago, my uncle is building a new boat. He's building a 23 Reef Runner, and that boat's going to be awesome. But he takes delivery of it next week, and he wants to keep it on one of the lifts behind the house. We have 3 lifts, one for the Bahama, this is on one, and the 16-foot egret's on the lift. And because this boat's not getting used much, we decided it would go on the lift that this boat's on. And so I got a call one day from my grandma. Said, hey Nick, here's the situation. We know that boat means a lot to you. We know that was kind of, your childhood on that boat. Do you want this boat? I'm like, absolutely I do, completely, and so they just gave it to me completely for free, which is awesome. And I know it's kind of, my family owned it before, but it doesn't matter. At the time, I still had to answer to, my family's captain, my parents, my grandparents, ask every time I want to use it, the whole 9 yards. Now it is my boat. I can do whatever I want to it. I can take it wherever I want. I can ship it around the world if I want, which we might do. I don't know. And so I'm super excited about it. I have amazing plans for this boat. Actually, a couple years ago, I actually wrote up an entire plan to redo this boat from the ground up. So once I walk through the boat, I'm going to talk about exactly the plans, and I guarantee you this is going to be the single most badass flats boat, if I do everything I want to do to it, that you've ever seen, bar none. It's going to have every big boat option you can think of on a little 18-foot boat. It's going to be sweet. But enough about the story. That's how I got the boat. I'm going to walk you through the boat. Should be quick. It's a sweet little boat, and most things on the boat work. It's not in horrible condition, but I'm going to overhaul this thing from the stringers up. So I'm going to start at the bow and walk you guys through it. All right, so we're standing up here on the bow now, and so way up on the bow, we have a bow light, a running light. This actually works, red on the port side, green on the starboard side, running at nighttime. This works. We have retractable cleats. Whoops, there we go. Little short side story. The reason every single boat in our family's fleet since the 90s have had retractable cleats is a certain family member of mine one time was straddling a cleat and fell, and it happened to cause some severe injury to a certain part of his body. And so ever since then, all of the cleats have been retractable. But light, retractable cleat, GoPro mount, that's gonna leave. Up here we have storage. If I can open that, you can see it's really dirty in here. It needs to be completely redone. Right now we have life jackets in there, our throwable PFD. Up there we have the little tow eye, trailering eye, some dry deck, a basket for our anchor. And then this is our fuel tank right here. I have no clue how good that fuel tank is, so part of my plan down the road is I am going to take the fuel tank out when the cap comes off. And honestly, I'll probably just get a new fuel tank put in just for peace of mind, but we'll get to that afterwards. So big storage compartment up in the bow. This boat was built to bonefish, and so up here it has push-pull holders. Boom, one here, one midship, and then this one on the transom here. That one broke, someone kicked it and it fell off, and so that's, I can't carry a push-pull until that gets fixed, so that's gonna be pretty high on the priority list to get done, because we bonefish, fly fish a lot, so I don't really want a trolling motor sitting up at the bow, because fly fishing lines is gonna get caught up in that, so we need the push-pull. So that's gonna get taken care of. To close out the front, we have our fuel fill here. The old Hughes logo, for a fact that's gonna get replaced, because I think it's awesome, the Hughes limited edition. And that's it. Under both gunnels, I'll come back here so I can show y'all. We have water on this side, but we have rod storage under the gunnels, all the way forward up, so you can fit long 9-foot fly rods, no problem at all. That's under both sides, up under. And again, like 9-foot fly rods fit no problem at all. We can fit basically 8 rods under the gunnel at a time, which is awesome, more than we need. Here, I mentioned it earlier, this was a limited edition Orvis one, so it has a teak deck here. And to be honest, this teak deck is completely shot. And as much as I like the teak and think it's a unique option, it's really a lot of maintenance. Even though it's a small deck, it's a lot of maintenance on a little 18-foot flats boat that's not worth that much money. And so I'd really rather not have to do that maintenance. So when I redo the boat, there's a very high chance I'm ripping out the teak altogether and not replacing it. I may replace it with like a flexi teak, a synthetic teak, and in this synthetic teak world, flexi teak is by far the best option. I think it's the only one that even remotely resembles actual teak. But if I don't do that, it's just gonna get painted in non-white and non-skidded, easy as that. Here's our console. We have storage under here, but I'm pretty sure this is, oh, it works. Yep, whoops. So we have storage under here. We have some line storage. You can see that's how nice the teak used to be. We have 2 batteries in there, which is nice having twin batteries on this boat and not just one battery. So if we wanted to put a trolling motor, it's already set up for that. Rod holders on each side. Boom. GPS antenna. Compass. And now sitting looking at the console, pretty simple, nothing fancy. Edson steering wheel, throttle, 2 Yamaha gauges. Both of these work, except the speedometer is not reading the correct speed. Water pressure gauge, that works. Depth gauge works. We're sitting in 10 feet of water. In this spot, we used to have a little Furuno GPS. This went out about a year ago, and this was when we were thinking about redoing the boat, so we decided not to even touch that or get it redone. All of our switches, our nav lights, our courtesy lights, because right now there are lights under the gunnels. However, I am going to completely overhaul the light system on this boat, and it is going to be overkill to the max, but it's going to be sweet. Manual bilge pump switches, the first live well, which is right here I'm sitting on. We'll look over it. The second live well, which is not hooked up. Engine choke back when this had a 2-stroke. Kill switch, key, trim tabs getting replaced. And this is just, you know, your little 12-volt plug. And then here we have a little door to get into the console. We have a radio there, you know, and this access to your batteries and our battery switch. It's all pretty simple, you know, standard, classic Hughes Latstrike Red Fisher stuff. In the back here, we have seating, you know, nice. These cushions, they're not in bad condition, but they're getting all redone. Under the seating, we have, oh, let's see if I can undo this. Under the seating, we have storage, and this goes all the way through that side, and it's actually pretty big. You can fit quite a bit of stuff in here. I mentioned this is the first live well. It works, no problem at all. It's full of water. You can see how this boat doesn't get touched. There's a spider web right there. But if the standpipe's not in this boat, this just fills up with water at the water line. That's why there's water. This is the second live well, the release well. This one is, there's no pumps on this. It's not hooked up. And the reason is what you see right here. Back when this boat used to get lifted up by the crane and put on top of the 62 Nordhaven on the front deck, you know, it had 4 points of contact to lift the boat up, one on this side, one in that corner, and 2 up front. And so to get this lifting point in here, we had to cut through the side of this well to get to, you know, the structural part of the hull. And so if we had a pump in here, it would just consistently pump water, and it would dump in between the liner and the whole side and just go into the bilge and eventually sink the boat. And it will absolutely sink this boat. Do not ask me how I know. We've had several instances, one of which was after so some backstory on the, well, let me finish the thing, then I'll give you the story how this boat has sunk it twice. Okay, and so on the other side, we have access down into our bilge. You can see it's very dirty, needs to be replaced. I mean, it needs to be cleaned out, fixed. Get down there. Bilge is not nice, but like I said, this boat's gonna get redone from the stringers up, so I'm not worried about it. We have a Yamaha 115. This was put on in 2012, and I think only has like, let's see how many hours she has. Has a whopping 440 hours, so absolutely nothing. This engine is good for a long time. I do think I'm gonna replace it, but it's in awesome condition. The engine is the one thing that's always been taken care of. And then we have our poling platform right here. Again, it's got the teak deck that is, you know, so far gone at this point. It needs to be pulled off, either non-skidded or whatever. And all these Hughes Red Fishers of this era, the 18s, the poling platform hangs off the transom with your main support on the deck and the other support, you know, against your transom. And so that's not the best design in the world from experience, so that's getting changed. But that's just a pretty basic tour of the boat. You know, you can see her in all its glory from a distance right here. Bow, through the, you know, cockpit, helm area, aft deck, poling platform. You can see it is a sweet little boat, and it's really not in that bad a condition. It's not in that bad a condition whatsoever. But for what I want to do to it, which I'll talk about after this little part here, and where I want to send this boat, I want it in tip-top shape like a brand new boat. But you all have seen the boat. Now I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm going to do to this boat, because once you hear what I'm going to do, like I said, it's going to be the most sweet little flats boat you've ever seen in your life. So let me actually move the boat a little bit closer this way, then I'll pick the camera back up and talk about that. All right, so now what I'm going to do to this boat to make it tricked out. So first, hull paint. The hull's getting repainted. Right now, let me stand towards the sun. Right now, it is that light blue that matches the Nordhaven color. I'm sure you can see the color in the drone footage. Beautiful color, but the paint, it's shot. It needs new paint. And so I've been going back and forth on paint. I still haven't figured out the exact color. So if you have any ideas, please drop them in the comments of what would look sweet. My 2 leading paints are, one, paint matching it to the Bahama 41, which I think would be really, really cool. And so get the whole sides blue up to the bow, and the running surface, you know, the same blue as the Bahama, and then the running surface, make that white. I think that'd look cool. It'd match the Bahama, put them side by side, to look badass. And then also put like a stainless rub rail on this boat, and it would kind of become a, you know, Bahama look-alike in the 18-foot range, which I think would look really cool. We'll see though. Or I thought about just all white, because as cool as it would be to match the Bahama, I'm not sure I really want the two-tone blue and white. I think just one standard color would be cool, and you know, all white's a classic. It looks awesome. Next up from the paint is the rub rail. The rub rail on this boat now is just a standard black rubber rub rail. That is fine if I were to, I am gonna replace it with either a white one, but I think what I'm gonna do is end up doing a nice fancy stainless steel rub rail. Yes, it's more money, yes, it's more maintenance, but with everything else I'm doing to the boat, I think that'll really, you know, put it to the next level and make it awesome. And so next up, deck. You can see the deck right now, it's just like, you know, that cream color. It's got the standard, you know, basically glassed in non-skid that came on these boats. And so all this is getting completely sanded down, and it's gonna get painted bright white, and it's gonna get spray on, basically all grip spray on non-skid. So very, very clean, it's gonna look clean, it's gonna be bright white, which I know some people are gonna say, you know, you don't want it bright white because reflection in your eyes, brightness when you're on the flats. Yes, I understand that. I've been flats fishing my entire life, but I think it's worth it because I think this boat's gonna look awesome with it. So, you know, we'll see when I get there, but that's probably what I'm gonna do. And so that's gonna get white. This is gonna be white as well. Behind the rod storage there, I think I'm gonna put a C-deck, you know, mat, so the reels are up against something soft and not the fiberglass. And I talked about it earlier, but the teak deck, this, as cool as it is, it's a lot of maintenance that I just don't want to take care of on a little boat like this. And so the teak's definitely gonna come out. I still haven't decided if I want to put, you know, a teak alternative. Definitely not C-deck. I hate the foam floors. I don't like them at all. But maybe Flexi Teak, which I mentioned it before. I think Flexi Teak is the best alternative to actual teak, and it looks them, you know, Fedship uses it on their boats. If it's good enough for Fedship, it's good enough for everyone else. And so either that or just getting rid of it, sanding the deck down and painting it white with all grip non-skid. Clean, it'll match the rest of the boat, the deck, it'll be super clean, super easy. Ideally, you can see this trim piece here with the screws going around. I hate seeing exposed screws, so we're gonna figure something out there where we don't see any screws. And that goes for all the screws on the boat. Even like here on the hinges, you can see the screws that screw them in. On the cleats, you can see the screws on the light, which I understand it's gonna be expensive to replace those. All the hardware with hardware that, you know, you can't see the screws. But I'm gonna do it because if I'm gonna do this boat, I'm gonna go all out, and I'm gonna make it look pretty sweet. The Bahama has all, you know, hardware with no screws. There's not a screw in the Bahama you could see except for T-top supports. And so I think I'm gonna do some similar hardware to that. Obviously not as, you know, heavy duty, but that's what we're doing. Oh, and the biggest thing while I'm here, as I mentioned, in 2012, we put a new motor on this, a 115 4-stroke. And so this boat was designed to have a 115 2-stroke on the back, which is a lot lighter than this 4-stroke that's on it. And so in 2012, when we put this motor on, we basically just switched out the motors. We didn't change the weight distribution on the boat whatsoever. And so with this motor, this boat does sit a little bit stern heavy. Sitting in the water, the bow's up a little bit. And if you're not careful, you know, it's easy for water to get in your splash wall, the whole 9 yards. And up at speed, it will, you know, start to porpoise a little bit. It's just the nature of the beast. And so what I am gonna do is I am gonna move the batteries from the console, and then up here in front of the fuel tank here, I'm gonna have a custom rack here for the batteries with a cover over it so we can still use it for storage. And so that should move a good amount of weight forward in this boat and really help it to, you know, run as designed with a 4-stroke. And I think I'm gonna repower it as well. I think I'm gonna put a a Mercury 115 Pro XS on it, just because I think it'd be a sweet package on this, and I like Mercury. With the console here, I'm gonna keep the console pretty much the same, just paint it white, Diamond Stitch upholstery and everything. But what I am gonna do is, if you look here at the console, you know, before we had a tiny little Furuno unit right here, which for the everyday flats boat does more than enough. You know, I mean, most flats boats don't have GPSs. We had it because this boat spent a lot of time in the Bahamas. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it to a place and have them do some glass work up here, you know, yay to here, to put in the screen where I can actually put a big, you know, Garmin display. and I can run everything through the Garmin, all of my engine data on a new Mercury that I put in here, all of my lighting controls, because I would like to put Lumitech or Lumishore, either one, lights on this boat, run all the controls through the Garmin. That way we don't have to see anything. When it comes to the breakers down here, these, standard rocker switches here, those are nice, but I am going to get those replaced with like, the Bocatech style switching, the little stainless buttons to make it look clean. Stuff like this, the key, and this is going to go, all that. I'm going to try to hide as much of it down here as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to see anything that I don't have to see on this boat. And so all that's going to get taken care of. And I mentioned lighting, so I'll talk about lighting. I mentioned how under the gunnels here, we do right now, we have blue under gunnel lighting on this boat, and it does work. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Lumishore strips under the entire gunnel, the RGBW ones. I can change the color completely from the Garmin, any color I want, patterns, change between colors, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to put lights there. I'm going to put underwater lights on this boat that is integrated into the same system. And then what I think is going to be unique is if you look at the poling platform here, you have this area that's recessed up under this pipework. So I think I'm going to put either strip lighting going around the edges on the inside or just in the middle, and that way it'll be light shining down on the motor, and I'll obviously hook it into the system so the color is going to match the underwater lights and the deck lights. I think that'll be super, super badass, and I personally have never seen that on a flats boat myself. So, it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm pumped about it. And so, while we're at the poling platform, I mentioned this as well. I mentioned how this is the standard poling platform that came on these boats with one support on the deck and the other behind it. Does a job, but from experience, it causes a lot of stress on the transom, and the poling platform's not the most stable. I don't know if you can see this in the video, but if you're standing on this one, it wobbles back and forth. Not a lot, maybe half an inch, but it's enough to notice the wobble, and it makes you a little bit uneasy, especially if you're trying to pull through some, rougher, windy conditions. And so I'm gonna get a whole new poling platform fabricated, and instead of doing this mounting where you have one support on the deck and one in the back, I think I'm gonna get a 4-point where it's all on deck. That back support's here and the same on that side, and the forward support's coming from here to here. That way it gets rid of all that stress on the transom, because this is not good for it. And yeah, it'll just be a whole lot better, a lot more stable. This one is powder coated black. Powder coating is cool, but I don't want it. I want it to be shiny stainless. It's gonna be like a big boat finish on this thing. And then I guess the last thing to note is the upholstery. Here, the only upholstery we have is a backrest here, seat, and then this bench seat. And so I'm gonna actually go to Canvas Designers in Palm Beach. They do all of our upholstery. They're very expensive, but they do very good work, so it's well worth the money. I'm gonna get diamond stitch on the entire boat, and then I'm also gonna figure out to fabricate some sort of backrest here, because while this boat does fish, it also does a lot of cruising, sandbarring. I also want this to be a boat, my future kids can, take out, do their thing. And so some kind of removable backrest, so when we're fishing, take it off, have a flat deck. When we're just cruising around, the Bahamas or whatever, keep the backrest on, make the boat a whole lot more comfortable to cruise on. But that's pretty much it on anything that, y'all care about. Obviously the inside of all the liners, stringers, all redone, anything like pumps, wiring, that's all gonna be redone. And I'll tell you, my goal is to have Skiff Shop do it up in Titusville. In my opinion, they do the best work for any flat skiffs you'll ever see in your life, and it's well worth, if you can get in with them and afford what they do, it's well worth it, because they really do provide a yacht-like finish to all the work. So I'm hoping to get it in with them and have them, take this boat down to the barrel hole and rebuild it up like that, with the lights, the paint, the non-skid, the fake teak, the new motor, the poling platform, the Garmin, all that sort of stuff. It's gonna be a really cool boat. And I have some other little tricks. We are gonna put I didn't mention 2 8-foot power poles on either side of the motor, just to make it easier when you're at the sandbar to not have to get an anchor out and do all that sort of stuff. And then up at the bow, I think we are gonna do a removable trolling motor. Has to be removable because we do bonefish and fly fish a lot, so it has to be removable, but I do think we are gonna do that. And then it's just gonna be a sweet boat. And then I mentioned I have plans, international plans for this boat. So yes, here are those plans. And so this boat, as I mentioned, it used to live on the bow of, you know, my family's 62 Nordhaven, and it cruised all around the Caribbean, Bahamas, the whole 9 yards. But it's lived its life here ever since. And I mentioned a little bit earlier too, we have the 16-foot egret that did the same as well. That's behind the house. And so we already have a flats boat here. We have that 16-foot egret for anyone who knows anything about flats boats knows egrets is like the Rolls Royce. And so we have that, that's gonna stay here. That boat's not going anywhere. And so this one, I kicked around what I wanna do with it once I get it all redone and restored up to, you know, elite status. And the thing that made the most sense was to get it done and ship it straight to Treasure Cay. Because Treasure Cay's home, second home, I guess, right now. And I mentioned in my last video, I don't know if you all remember, that I am thinking of moving to Treasure Cay full-time. My wife and I, Melly, we're thinking about that, and we would really like to. So if we can make that work, this boat's gonna go straight over there. And so obviously this is not a great boat for island hopping. Our plan is to get a 23 Albury to have over there when the big boat's not there. We have a whole plan, but this is gonna be a little boat what it's gonna have over there. We can do some bone fishing on, just putt around in the evenings, you know, just go outside the mouth of the marina to get some lobster during lobster season, that sort of stuff. Hence, you know, the power poles, pull up to the beach, put the power poles down. So that's the plan with this boat. Get it all fixed up, ship it straight to Treasure Cay. And it's gonna live its entire life there. And then down the road, you know, Melly and I both want multiple kids. So once we have, you know, kids, once they get into the boating, you know, age 7, 8, 9, you know, this can be a boat that they can start to go, you know, do their own exploring on the Bahamas, because that's what me and my brothers did on this boat. And so to be able to have my kids do the same thing over there would mean a whole lot to me. You know, it's a boat I will never, ever, ever get rid of. It's a boat I'm gonna be giving to my kids, and I hope they're gonna be giving to their kids. This boat will be in the family forever. And so that's why I want to do it up super fancy and nice and basically dump more money than I really should into this boat, is because it's a boat I plan to be in the family forever, and so I want it nice. And so that's the plan for this boat. I'm going to do an entire series on this channel documenting all of the work that I'm going to do, and all that good stuff. And then obviously once it gets to the Bahamas, y'all will see it over there, the whole 9 yards. But hope y'all enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the boat. It's a sweet little boat. It's going to be a badass project. If you are interested in this, if you like the Bahamas, any of my other content, subscribing to the channel is a huge help. It lets me know you guys are interested. Like this video, leave a comment, and that's pretty much it. So I'll see you all in the next video.